In Venezuela, government authorities denounce new terrorist plans sponsored by Maria Corina Machado and drug trafficking. In Uruguay, over 2.7 million citizens are called to elect a new president this Sunday. And in Spain, citizens take to the streets to protest against the administration of Madrid's president Isabel Díaz Ayuso. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Venezuelan government has derailed new terrorist plans against the country. Venezuelan Minister of Interior, Justice and Peace, Diosdado Cabello, said a violence plan by mercenary groups stemming from the state of Zulia has been dismantled. Cabello said terrorist plans against the country are being financed by foreign powers to generate chaos. He said the terrorist groups controlled by Maria Corina Machado are being financed by drug trafficking.
Currently, the financing of the terrorist groups led by Mrs. Maria Machado comes from drug trafficking. From drug trafficking, and the logistical support comes mainly from Colombian paramilitary groups led by Duque and Uribe. They continue to attack our country, and we will remain firm in defending the revolution, defending our territory, and, above all, defending our people.
The Interior, Justice and Peace Minister assured that they dismantled the training site of the paramilitary groups.
Within the investigation, they provided us with the location of a site where they were training Colombian paramilitary groups. Colombian paramilitary groups linked to the same people who participated in Gedeon. Whoever wants to know the names of those who were in Gedeon, in Operation Gedeon, check the data of the paramilitary groups. Who trained them, where they were trained. They had this training site. We arrived there. When we arrived in the middle of the operation, we started to check the location and we found these weapons that were probably part of what was there for training.
The World Congress of Anti-Fascist Youth and Students moves forward in Venezuela with the participation of at least 500 guests from all over the world. During the event that began on Friday, participants are developing a work agenda focused on eradicating fascism, which currently threatens to scourge humanity. Likewise, 7 work tables were set up to discuss ideas that could be included in this initiative promoted by the Venezuelan government aimed at the defeat of this ideology. Close to 1,000 people are in the city of Caracas, half of them from abroad, in order to continue strengthening the anti-fascist network and safeguard the sovereignty of the peoples. We go now with Belén, our special envoy in Caracas, for more details on everything that has been happening in this International World Youth and Student Anti-Fascist Congress.
Hello studios, exactly. We continue here in Caracas as the Youth Anti-Fascist Congress is underway in the Venezuelan capital, and the delegations are here. This is the second day of the Congress. Some of the panels are already underway as the delegations from different parts of the world are discussing, debating, bringing their own experiences on very relevant topics to really, first of all, understand the world we are living in, and second, just share the different experiences from different territories and also think of a common agenda and common strategies to really tackle those challenges and think of the way in which a better future, a better world order can be built. And that is what is happening here in Caracas. The topics go from discussing the environmental crisis to discussing the possibilities of young and popular organization around the world. And also the women and gender topic is also one of the main keys of debate. This has been for the past decades, of course, one of the most relevant topics, but in this case it's being analyzed in an international and also an anti-capitalist perspective for the women's movement around the world. And we are now joined by Luisa Tanon. She is from Portugal and she is from the Democratic Women Movement from Portugal. So first of all, welcome Luisa. Thank you for joining us here in teleSUR English. It's a pleasure for us to have you here, and I would first like to ask you about your first impressions. It's your first time in Venezuela, right?
Yes, it's my first time in Venezuela. I arrived here this week, and I've been finding it wonderful people, very sympathetic, very warm and receptive, and also it's very important to say that it has nothing to do what it has been told in my country, in Portugal. People tell about many lies about Venezuela, that it's too violent here and people don't have anything, and I've not seen that at all. I've just been loving it. It's a beautiful city. It's a great opportunity to meet more people and to see the resistance, the political culture here from Venezuela, that it's a big example to us in Portugal.
Right. Of course, the question about the media campaign against the sovereign countries around the world is one of the key topics here as well, because of course that is the impression from many of the delegates that are visiting not only Venezuela but sometimes Latin America for the first time, moving out of their own countries for the first time. So it's really good to know like the in-person experience from this country on the one hand, and also I imagine that you've been talking to delegates from all over the world and asking them about their experiences, what is going on in their countries. So it's a very big learning process. And I would like to ask you, yesterday was the first day of discussions, of panels. You come from a women's movement in Portugal. So what was that like in the exchange of ideas? What were some of the main topics in that area? How was the exchange of visions with delegates from all over the world? What's your perspective?
I would say it has been also fantastic. Since I arrived here, I've been talking every time to people from all the continents. And as I'm from the women's movement, I always ask about the women and the situation in their countries. But here, yesterday, it was very important that we had a whole discussion dedicated only to gender and women's. And I was invited there to be talking about the experience of my country and my movement. That was great. But it was even better to listen many people from Latin America, many women from Venezuela as well, and other countries in the world to tell the experiences also as struggle in the rights for women in all these countries. So it was very rich. We stayed almost 3 hours there just exchanging experience, and it has been great. I feel like even more strong now to my struggles in my country, and surely they feel the same to their countries, and it's very important to be solidarity, to strengthen this solidarity towards all the women of the world. We learned very much and it's great.
Well, that is really amazing to hear and to see. We see people exchanging experiences, we see people exchanging their flags, their fighting symbols, and that is really like it can appear a superficial thing, but I think that it speaks to really the exchange and the solidarity that is being built with someone that you are talking with, sharing an experience, so it's really good. And I would like to end by asking you, what is the situation in Portugal in terms of the women's movement? What are your key struggles, and have you been able to share and learn from other experiences during this Congress?
Sure. We see that Portugal has lived 48 years under a fascist dictatorship, as many Latin American countries. And that dictatorship was very misogynist and hated women. Women had way lower rights than men. And just because many women were in the anti-fascist struggle, and together with all the people, all the working class, they made a popular social revolution in 1974. And after that, things changed a lot. What proves, we think, that the social organization of the working class can't really change the world. But now we live in a capitalist country, that's Portugal. It's one of the poorest countries in Europe, so we have many struggles. Due to the low wages, women get less paid and usually are in lower paid professions. And we fight a lot so in some rights that women can be mothers if they want, And this should not be a heavy thing. They should have free public education since for babies, and this doesn't happen right now in our country. It's a struggle to us to have a free and public service to children care in our country. We also are always in the streets talking to all women to be strong in their trade unions, to fight for bigger wages, to have also better times of work, because some women do work a lot, have 2 or 3 jobs, and this is too much. We see that women suffer a lot, and we also are in the struggle against violence against women, because Portugal is overall a very safe country, but the most reported crime is domestic violence. So we have to tell women to be aware of that and don't fear to denounce that. So it's one of our struggles. And mainly now we say a lot about anti-imperialism, to support Palestine, to support Cuba, to support Venezuela, and women to stand with peace against all the wars, against all the violence. This is also very important to us, and that's why it's very important to us to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luisa. It's our pleasure to have you, truly. That was Luisa, our comrade from Portugal, bringing some of the information and reality in the women's movement in that country. And really that is just a little bit of what this Congress is all about. Not only the topics that are being discussed, but also learning from the reality in each country. Because one of the keys in the international attempt to unite the different movements from different countries has to do with learning about what's going on, and also finding that there's a lot of common ground, that there's a lot of shared history, even with peoples from far away in the world, and that is what is happening. The exchanges are being made, and a lot of comrades are realizing that the same struggles are being fought in different territories, and that means that there's a lot of people from whom to learn from, and also a lot of road to walk together. So that is what is happening here. We will continue to bring you all the information from the Anti-Fascist Youth Congress in Caracas. Now we go back to you.
Thank you, Belen, for the information. Let's now take a short break. But first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English. We will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Uruguay, the armed forces and the national police are moving and guarding the ballot boxes and electoral material for the runoff presidential election to be held this Sunday, November 24th. The election material will be taken to custody centers to be distributed to over 7,000 voting stations. Over 2.7 million citizens are called to vote for one of the 2 options, either for Yamandu Orsi and Carolina Cose by the Broad Front Party, or for Álvaro Delgado and Valeria Ripoll by the National Party and the ruling Republican coalition. According to polls, the presidential hopefuls Yamandu Orsi and his rival Álvaro Delgado are in a technical tie for this Sunday's elections. And in El Salvador, social movements took to the streets this Saturday to protest cuts in the 2025 budget presented by Nayib Bukele's government. The march started at 8 a.m. local time from Salvador del Mundo Square. Demonstrators condemned the budget cuts to 30 public hospitals and the education sector. In this regard, they demand an alternative budget that responds to the needs of citizens in the face of the loss of quality of life, especially in the areas of education and health. The alleged dismissal of health workers who participated in the so-called White March in recent days was what led members of that union, teachers and members of various unions and non-governmental organizations to speak out against Bukele's measures. Meanwhile, in Ecuador, President Daniel Noboa marks 1 year of his administration marked by the security crisis, the energy crisis, and popular discontent. President Noboa took office as President of Ecuador in an early election, called after the dissolution of parliament during Guillermo Lazo's term. During Noboa's year in office, the country faced problems such as violence and insecurity, registering more than 5,000 violent murders between the 1st of January and November 10th, 2024. Another of the relevant events of this year of Noboa's government was the assault to the Mexican embassy in Quito and demonstrations in rejection to the blackouts, layoffs, and the deterioration of the economic situation of the nation. Meanwhile, in Honduras, the first trade fair of the People's Republic of China was inaugurated on Friday. The event was organized by the Chinese Council for the Promotion of International Trade and the Secretariat of Economic Development of Honduras at the Expo Center of the Chamber of Commerce and Industries of Cortes in the city of San Pedro Sula. The activity takes place from November 21st to the 24th, and it is the largest exhibition organized by China in Honduras since the establishment of diplomatic relations between both countries. China injects dynamism into the world economy, offers new opportunities for global development, and opens new prospects for mutually beneficial cooperation between the two nations. We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Spain, thousands of people took to the streets to protest against Madrid Autonomous Community President Isabel Díaz Ayuso, demanding justice for the death of over 7,000 elderly people during the COVID-19 pandemic. Demonstrators condemned the inability of Ayuso to deal with the COVID-19 emergency, for it claimed the lives of dozens of elderly people. Demonstrators also blamed the judiciary for failing to open an investigation into this matter to bring justice for the deceased. The people participating in the protest also expressed their condolences to the families of the elderly victims of this COVID-19 pandemic.
We are in pain out of helplessness, for we must try to allow families to grieve, but with justice being served. Ayuso thought best not to transfer elderly patients, thinking they ought to die. And yes, the elderly will eventually die. But when it may be their turn, not because somebody's fault, negligence, or abandonment.
What happens is that the justice system is highly politicized in favor of the right. And furthermore, these people on the right don't care to destroy all institutions in order to prevail.
In the Madrid Assembly, we have a president who not only tries to silence what happened to those 7,291 elderly people during the pandemic because of her protocols, but also she despises the victims and the relatives, as demonstrated by the way she conducted herself in the plenary of the Assembly, where I asked her to apologize to the relatives she had insulted. Not only she did not apologize, but she confronted them.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.